Oskar Schindler was a Nazi war profiteer who ended up saving the lives of 1,200 Jews, and we can learn a lot from his story about how to save people from a genocide. And if you were a 90s kid like me, you were probably forced to watch Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List at way too young of an age so that you were like both painfully bored because you didn't understand what was going on, but also vaguely traumatized. But let's revisit the life of Oskar Schindler, and in particular, many of the things that Steven Spielberg left out because they are very relevant. And let's start with my biggest criticism of the film, which is that Spielberg sanitized the fuck out of Oskar Schindler's life in order to make him more likable. And this is an enormous disservice because the most inspiring thing about Oskar Schindler's life is how it shows you don't have to be a saint to be a hero. In fact, you don't have to be a good or even halfway decent person. You can be the worst and still save many lives. So let's get to know this absolute dirtbag. In his youth, Oskar Schindler was expelled from technical school for forgery. Throughout his 20s, he was arrested multiple times for public drunkenness. He got married and then serially cheated on his wife. One of these affairs produced 2 children, and the second one he refused to take responsibility for. And if you think those are some red flags, in 1936, he started working for the Nazis. Now, granted, I don't know if he was one of the faithful. In later years, he would say that he only took the job to pay off his severe drinking debts. Regardless, he becomes a Nazi spy, snitching on troop and railway movements in Czechoslovakia and later Poland so the Nazis could invade those countries. That's bad, guys. Like, I don't care what you've done in your past, what is your deepest, darkest, most shameful secret, it probably doesn't hold a candle to helping the Nazis invade Poland. Now, all that stuff I just told you, Steven here left out of his movie. These are the details that are golden, my dude. No one can convince me this man is not a hack. Once the Nazis invade Poland, they're auctioning off all these Jewish businesses they've stolen, and Oskar decides to become a war profiteer. He buys this enamelware factory. And then he hires a bunch of Jews to work in his factory because he can hire them for basically nothing, leasing them from the SS as slave labor. For 3 years, he's running this stolen Jewish factory using Jewish slave labor. His employees are living in a nearby concentration camp, and he's seemingly fine with that. Now, starting in 1941, the Jews from the Krakow ghetto are starting to get transported to the Belzec extermination camp, meaning like the gas chambers. And still, Oskar doesn't mix up what he's doing. It's only in 1943 when the Krakow ghetto is completely liquidated and hundreds of Jews are killed in the streets, and Oskar Schindler is forced to see the violence that he's been a part of with his fucking eyeballs, that he realizes, maybe this has gone a little too far. From there on out, he starts making moves to protect the Jewish workers in his factory, ultimately saving 1,200 from concentration camps. So this is the first and most vital lesson of Oskar Schindler's life, which is even the worst people on earth, just absolute human garbage, can make the decision at any time to start being a hero. Yes, even if you steal from your mom to support your superglue huffing addiction, I believe that you can make a decision and start saving people's lives. And Oskar Schindler is going to be cheering you on from the afterlife. The second lesson of Oskar Schindler's life is sometimes you're going to have to bribe Nazis. I have these purists in my comments saying, I don't want to donate to these fundraisers because the money is going to these corrupt officials. Get over it. Lives are on the line. Schindler ended up spending his entire fortune, every dime he'd made on that stolen factory, on routinely bribing Nazi officials with diamonds, luxury goods, and alcohol. A third lesson is carry on with your business. What do I mean? Well, in 1943, Oskar Schindler had his epiphany that the Nazi Party was horrifying, and he could have at that point, decided from a moral purity standpoint, I don't want to be associated with them anymore, and sold his business, evacuated from Poland, and just gotten himself out of the whole situation. But he didn't. He continued to use his business to save people. And that's what we need to do, okay? Whatever your business is, book talk, beauty blogging, playing violent video games that you project onto your boobs on Twitch, whatever it is, you can use it to save people. But I see some people saying, but if I fundraise alongside my regular content, it's gonna look like I'm trying to profit off of people's tragedy. Okay, who cares what it looks like? We're trying to save people's lives. And if your business is as an influencer, I'm going to need you to continue doing your influencing as hard as possible while trying to, fill out these fundraisers. And it's true, there are people on social media where as soon as you say one thing about watermelons, if you say anything else ever again, they're going to be all on your case saying like, how dare you talk about anything other than watermelons? But they're wrong and their ideas are bad, and they would have woke scolded Oskar Schindler into selling his enamel cookware factory instead of what he did, which was he got a contract selling cookware to the Nazi Party to make sure that his business was essential to the war effort, and so therefore he could keep his Jewish employees and they didn't have to go to an extermination camp. Purity culture in organizing is bullshit. It's toxic. Ignore those people and carry on with your business. The fourth hard and painful lesson of Oskar Schindler's story is that you cannot save everyone. If you try to, you will save no one. Steven's movie is called Schindler's List, but it should be called Lists because there were actually 9 of them. These were lists of Jewish employees that Schindler, gave to the Nazis to be like, I need these people for my factory. And it wasn't actually Schindler who wrote them because he didn't know that many of his workers personally. That labor was outsourced to people like Marcel Goldberg, who was actually a capo, so a Jew who worked for the Nazis as a police of his own people. Again, not like some amazing saint. But Goldberg and other Jewish middle managers at the factory had to write out lists of the limited number of people that they could save. Imagine what that feels like. It maybe feels a little bit like getting 100 messages a day from people begging you to support their fundraiser to help them evacuate out of a genocide. Knowing you have to ignore those pleas because you're only effective if you focus on one fundraiser at a time. It feels fucked up. It takes a psychological toll. But we can shoulder that psychological toll, and it is worth it if it saves even one person's life. But take heart, because the final lesson I have for you is that you, like Oskar Schindler, are not alone in doing this work. The majority of Jews who were sheltered from Nazis were not saved by Oskar Schindler, not by a long shot. In fact, more than 26,000 people have been identified by historians as having sheltered Jews during the Nazi regime. Most of them hid one person or one family in their attics, crawl spaces, or potato bins. They hid their Jewish neighbors for years. They had no guarantee that the war was ever going to end, that the Nazi regime would ever fall, or that these people would ever get out. During a wartime when food was hard to come by for everybody, they shared their food with these families. And every day that they sheltered Jews, they were risking their lives and the lives of their own families because if they were discovered, they would receive the death penalty. Now you, my fellow content creator, no one is asking you to risk your life to help people evacuate from a genocide. We're asking you to help fundraise. And if you're worried that the people that you're trying to help will die before they can get the money, or that the war will never end and they'll never be able to get out and it's going to make you feel sad, or maybe you're worried about how it's going to affect your brand or your image to help them out. When you have those doubts, I want you to think about what it would take to shelter someone in your home on penalty of death for years and realize that doing a little fundraising on the internet to save people from a genocide is not that big of an ask. And the impact you will make by doing so is so much larger than the money that you will simply raise. You don't know who you're going to be inspiring when you sign on and say, this is important to me, I want to save these people's lives. It is highly possible that nothing you ever do in your life is going to be more important and more heroic than this. At least that's how I feel. Speaking of which, over the past 50-some hours, we raised $70,000 to evacuate the entire Almzani family as soon as the border opens. That book giveaway has closed. Congratulations to the winner, Kyla. Now, this week's book giveaway is benefiting Naveen, who is 9 months pregnant. This is extremely urgent, and she has rheumatoid arthritis, which means she needs special prenatal care she can only get in Egypt. We are going to pray that border opens in time for her to deliver outside, and in the meantime, we are going to raise the money as fast as we can so that she can get out. To enter to win this week's book giveaway, you're going to donate at least €5, it's a European fundraiser, as much as you are able to the first link in my bio and send a screenshot of your receipt to t4gaza@gmail.com. Is this a bit of book promotion and fundraising at the same time? Yes, but who cares? I've raised $120,000 doing this. Oskar Schindler spits on your purity politics. And as always, anyone helping with these evac funds, you are amazing. You are my mishpacha. I love you.